All right, in this video, we are simplifying. So we do the 12 divided by 4, which is 3. And then when you have the same bases and you're dividing, like the x's divided by the x's and the y's divided by the y's, you are subtracting the exponents. So then it's just like this. You always want to move things to the numerator. So then we have 3x, 4 minus 3 is 1. And then y, 3 minus 1 is 2. And we really don't write that one. We just write 3x and then y squared. All you want to do is make sure that it's in alphabetical order. For this one, it's just a fancy way of showing multiplying. So 2 times 3 is going to be 6. When you're multiplying the same base, we're going to add the exponents. If the exponent is not showing, like the y, you can put a 1 there. Now notice that I grouped it together. You can show your work this way, or you can show your work like that. Just make sure it looks like it's in the exponent. So 4 plus 5 is 9, and then y to the 9th. Same thing here, multiplying. Negative 3 times 4 is going to get you negative 12. X to the 6 times x squared. Y to the first times y to the third. Z to the second times z to the negative 5. So some students like to list the variables and then just add them here. That's fine too. But notice right here, the z has a negative exponent. We are not allowed to have a negative exponent, so if we wrote it all, we would have to circle and move it. Everything's in the numerator to begin with, so then I would have to move just the z to the negative 3 down. But when you move it to the denominator, the nice thing about that is the exponent becomes a positive. That's the whole point of moving it. Nothing else moves because the exponents were positive. Number 5, remember it's just a fancy way of showing multiplying. So negative 10 times 3 is negative 30. And we are adding the exponents because we're multiplying the same base. So then that gets you negative 30x raised to the 7th power. X to the 0 becomes a 1. 4 times 1 is just 4. Now we have the x, and then we're going to add the exponents of the same bases. Now notice when you add the exponents, it's a negative. So we're going to move that to the denominator. And when we move it, it becomes a positive. Negative 2 divided by 6 is negative 1 over 3. Just simplify it. X to the 0 becomes 1. Now notice x to the 4th stays on bottom because there's nothing that goes with it. Y to the negative 3 minus 1, because there's a 1 there. When you're dividing the same bases, you're minusing the exponents. So everything else stays put. But notice what happens here. The y has a negative 4 as an exponent. Since it has a negative 4, we have to move it. That negative 1 stays because that's a negative base, and that's okay. And then we should just put it in alphabetical order. And lastly, we're going to do the same thing. Negative 3 over 4 becomes negative 3 over 4. It does not simplify. We're minusing the same base. So we have x to the 6 divided by x squared is minusing. Y to the first divided by y to the third is minusing. And then z to the 0 just crosses out. So then we're left with z squared. So let's simplify. Negative 3 over 4 doesn't change. Minus the exponents. Now, once you get to this point, what is the only negative exponent? The y value. So you circle and move it. Everything else stays the same because they have the positive exponents.